Hi there. So I am specifically today talking about Brexit, but don't switch off if you're not in the UK because this situation, the actual logistics of it, if you like, is occurring across the world. So I'm not meaning Brexit specifically, but I'm talking about the control structure and the fight for liberty, if you like, or the manifestation of liberty, uh, taking us out of a situation where we are being controlled as a people. That is happening the world over. So Brexit is just a symptom, really, rather than a core issue. It's a big issue right now in the United Kingdom, well, in England specifically, but it isn't the cause of an issue. It's a symptom of it. And similar symptoms are occurring right across the world, throughout Europe and in America also. So what I'm going to do here is just read to you a status that I uploaded to a status I posted on Facebook yesterday. And then I will go through and analyze the status. So this status I have called Brexit Blessings. And this is what I wrote. The British people are being pushed to their limits over Brexit. However, it would be a lot easier if the people knew what the game was. Then they would not need to buy into the roller coaster emotions of dashed hopes, frustration, anger, and feeling betrayed. The game is delay tactics, coming in from the controllers that were. May is just their puppet. She takes her orders from them. Delay, 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 until they can engineer a Brexit without a Brexit. The agenda is the creation of superstates and a one world government, and Brexit is in opposition to that agenda. What is most important to know is that the British vote on leave has done its job. The controllers that were have lost control. They may appear in control due to the delay tactics seemingly working, but in truth, they are desperate. Brexit vote for leave was a turning point forged in magic. The timelines were changed. Regardless of how this manifests in the interim physically, the energetic presentation is that we have already left. Brexit has already happened. This must and will create a match within the physical dimension one way or another. Carry on working with this knowledge in your minds and hearts, and don't buy into the illusions of false hope and frustration. Those who voted leave will get what they want. A sovereign Britain. Those who voted remain will get what they want. Unity with Europe. Both are the goal. Yet it will not manifest in the way most people interpret. The EU will change its structure entirely, and we will see utter chaos as this happens. On the other side of this is what every service to others individual desires, and that is true liberty. Turn your desperate hope into knowing and create that which is already there. You are not powerless to a corporate machine. You are a divine creator, and you join with other divine creators to manifest the world you want to experience. Brexit blessings to all. So that was my status that I wrote yesterday. And so I'm going to analyze this and go through this. So firstly, the British people are being pushed to their limits over Brexit. So yes, that's obvious. What's actually happened is because the individuals in Britain do not know the game, they're not aware of the control structure, Illuminati, cabal, whatever you want to call them. So they are seeing the government as made up of several individual independent people who are all working for the same or similar or completely different goals. they do not realize that there is a huge group of people that are all controlled by the same structure. They don't know this. So therefore, when any vote is taken, the British people, and this is the same across the world, that are not in understanding of the true picture, when they vote, they believe that their vote is part of a democracy and that their vote counts. And whilst it does, because obviously not every single person's vote can be controlled, there is still infiltration, there's control, there's things that are against the law when it comes to the voting system in many different countries. And there is also a manipulation of the vote itself, a manipulation of the law itself, and this isn't something that the people are aware of. So when they make that vote, they feel empowered. They feel that their vote counts. And as I said, it does to a degree, but only to a degree, and not fully in the way that they think it does. So when it comes to Brexit, they believed that once the vote had been counted and Brexit, the Leave was the winning vote, meaning that we would come out of the EU, the people, the absolute majority, not everybody, but the majority of the people believed that that would take place. So they're in a state of hope and joy immediately because, yay, their vote has succeeded. And then you've got a whole bunch of other people who, and it was very, very close, as you're aware, I'm sure, those that voted Remain are so frustrated, disappointed, furious, angry with the government, angry with the people who voted Leave. Everybody's coming from a different agenda. Some people voted Leave for completely different reasons to the other people that voted Leave. Those that voted Remain, a lot of them voted Remain for completely different reasons. And not only has this put one group of people against the other group of people and divided the country, very similar to what is happening in the United States regarding Trump and his presidency. Not only has it divided the people, but it's actually divided families and friends and relationships. And I actually know at least 2 marriages that have broken up because one person voted Leave and one person voted Remain. So it's incredibly divisive. So let's just look at the people that voted Leave. So they're all really happy, they're really joyful, they're empowered, their vote counted. And so they'll be looking at the legal system and looking at the timeline, and then they will be thinking, right, so we're due to leave the EU on this particular date. Then when that date comes around and it doesn't happen, and Article 50 is being extended again, or whatever reason it is, and I haven't followed the whole political Brexit thing that closely. I'm looking really at the energetic structure rather than the third dimensional political structure. What they're going through is an incredulous disbelief. So they're looking at this situation thinking, how can this possibly happen? This isn't a democracy. This isn't fair on the people. And it's a shock to them because they don't know the game. They don't know the plan. They don't know that we are or were controlled. So they're all en masse in this state of shock. And then when they see the different politicians arguing amongst themselves and laying out, well, let's try it this way. And then this person says, well, that won't work. Okay, well, let's do it this way. They don't realize that this is all a big game. It's all a big act. They're all in on it. They're all just, producing a theatrical show just to make everyone think that there's a democracy, when really they're all in on it to one degree and another. I mean, not everyone in the British political system is part of this. Absolutely not. There are independent individuals there, but the majority is part of this control structure one way or another, whether they're in the family itself or whether they're bribed by them or whether they don't know that they exist but they're still in their pyramidal structure. One way or another, We are looking at a group of people that have to follow the same agenda, but they present as though they're individual, and the people don't know this. So they are currently being pushed to their limits over Brexit, because there's only so many times that you can build someone up in a state of hope and dash that hope. And then you build their hope up again and dash it yet again. There's only so much that most people can take before their frustration reaches boiling point. And that is where the British people are right now with Brexit. They're at boiling point as a group consciousness. Those that don't understand the game. Those that do understand the game, and I call it a game, it's not a fun game at all, obviously, even for those who are aware of this. I call it a game because what I mean by game is plan, agenda, following a certain agenda. Those that understand that would have clearly seen that there's no way the EU is going to let Britain out without some kind of massive delay tactic and some kind of punishment, if you like. If you dare leave us, then this is what we'll do, and this is what we'll do, and we won't let you have this, and we won't let you have that. They'll try everything because it's against the agenda. The agenda is to gather countries into this big super state. The agenda is not to let them out of it, even if the government in that country is controlled by the EU structure itself. It's still against the agenda. It's a one world government agenda. That is the goal and has been for many, many, many years. So Brexit is not part of their agenda. It's going in the opposite direction. So it would be a lot easier if the people knew what the game was. Well, of course it would, because they would never have bought into hope and then incredulous shock, disappointment, disbelief. They wouldn't have gone into this roller coaster of emotions because they would have known what the game was. Then they would not need to buy into the roller coaster emotions of dashed hopes, frustration, anger, and feeling betrayed. So that's kind of where they have been and where they are. The game. So what is the game? It's delay tactics. Delay, delay, delay. Delay as long as possible while they can think about how to continue our agenda. How do we keep Britain involved and tied in to this super state? Let's try and give them Brexit, give the people what they voted for. These annoying people that voted leave, how dare they have a mind of their own and want to be sovereign? That's not what we're going to allow them to do. So let's find a way to give them Brexit while still keeping them in the super state, even if we end up changing the super state. However, amongst all of that appears to be surety and control, there is also a desperation. There is a lack of power, because when you work on a magical level, the Brexit vote affected the timelines, the consciousness, the minds of the individuals who have voted and physically for sovereignty, simultaneously voted energetically for sovereignty, because everything is layered on top of one another. So the consciousness of the majority consciousness of the individuals that wanted to leave, regardless of their reason for voting leave, their ultimate reason is independence and sovereignty. Then even with the Remainers, we've got a consciousness of desire for unity with Europe there as well. Both of those join together, because absolutely unity with Europe and unity with the world and unity with the solar system and unity with the galaxy is the timeline. It's the ascension timeline. It's the goal. So that creates like a magical level of consciousness, which leads to manifestation. And those that are sort of higher up in that service to self-control system, Cabal, Illuminati, they're aware of that. They're aware that they don't influence the timelines in the same way that they once did. The game is delay tactics coming in from the controllers that were. So for many years, people have called these individuals the powers that be. When you call them the powers that be, the controllers that be, you give strength and weight to that statement. When you say the powers that be, you are giving them that power. So the Nine told me quite a while ago that it's very important to state the powers that were, the controllers that were, because that in itself takes that power away and puts it into a past tense, as in they are controllers no more, they are power no more. That has already happened, but you are reinforcing it when you use the terminology that matches the state that already is. So that's why the Nine have taught me to refer to them as the powers that were, or the controllers that were. May is just their puppet. So without going into what Theresa May is and how she's connected to the group, basically she answers to a higher order, a different order. She is in some way tied up with them, whether she's conscious of it, whether she's not conscious of it, and there is a certain conscious awareness of it. It's not full consciousness, it's not fully consciously aware of that structure, but there is some conscious awareness of it. So without going into that, which really is immaterial, to be honest, as to where May is, it's her personal path, she does answer to that group that is controlled by that service to self structure. She takes her orders from them. So a lot of the things she says are not coming from her, you know, it's coming from others that have told her to toe the line, and she is, you know, towing the line. Delay, delay, delay until they can engineer a Brexit without a Brexit, which is what I said. Let the people think they've got Brexit, but really they're still tied into the superstate through this particular tie and this particular, you know, let's create all these laws that sort of bind them in. What the service to self-structure don't realise, that are actually in this sort of game of delay, 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 is that the people are fully aware. Even if they're not aware of the game itself, they're not aware of the control structure, they are aware of what's right and what's wrong, of how to, you know, go with a promise to actually carry out a vote that the people have voted for. So when democracy is given to the people and they think that that democracy is working, they're silent, and they are, you know, sort of putting up with things, I guess, and some of them may even be happy with things. But when that democracy is clearly not being put into practice, you have an uproar, and that's what's happening. The people are fully aware of what's going on. They're not aware of the cabal structure itself as a unit, but they're aware that something is not right. These people are intelligent individuals. So Brexit without a Brexit, going back a few years, they could have got away with this. There was a certain level of ignorance that was there amongst the masses. It's not there anymore. Since the internet and the passing of information, and the amount of individuals that are now aware in very different levels, that creates a sort of a change in everybody's perception. So there's that ignorance is not there in the way that it was, and people want empowerment, people want sovereignty. That's the whole vote in the first place, and the vote for sovereignty itself has created the sovereignty within them. So a Brexit without a Brexit is clearly seen. The cabal can't do this, oh, let's give them this and tie them up with that, without being seen. Everything they do is being seen, even if they don't know that they're a group. They don't know that they're the cabal. They may not even believe in the cabal. They might think that that's stupid and just see that as a government system, the EU versus the British government. However they perceive it, they're still seeing that Brexit is Brexit, and Brexit without a Brexit is not Brexit. They can see that. The agenda is the creation of superstates and a one world government. So that's what I've said, that to actually draw all the countries into a large unit where the government is, even though they've got their own individual governments, this government is actually in control of all those governments. Therefore, no matter how independent they want to be, they have to go through the superstate leader government in order to be able to pass their laws. They don't have any independence because they're within this larger superstate. And one of those superstates is the European Union. They want to create as few superstates as they can so that eventually all those superstates are controlled by the same government and you get a one world government. That's what their agenda is, and has been for Well, a long, long time. I mean, I'm looking at sort of, hundreds of years. It's been a plan that's been in the process for hundreds of years to actually have control and put that control into actual physical control, as in having a one world government. They also knew that there would come a time when the people would become aware that the ascension would take place. And so if they had their one world government in place by then, it would be easier for them to deal with this uprising of the Starseeds and the Indigo Revolution. Of course, that didn't happen. Their one world government is quite a few years late. And of course, it hasn't happened yet. And the timelines show that it won't, not in the way they want. If there's a one world government ever, it will be very, very different. And it will be a self-governing society rather than a government. It will be a round table rather than a pyramid structure. That's the timeline we are heading for. That's the ascension timeline. So the agenda is the creation of superstates and a one world government, and Brexit is in opposition to that agenda. So moving Britain out of the EU, making Britain a little sovereign island, is completely against the agenda, because then that higher government won't be able to oversee their laws, and it'll be a lot easier for the people to become sovereign and work with these independent governments. Even if those governments are controlled by the cabal, they're still much smaller, and they'll have their own legal system that won't have to go through the EU legal system or the superstate legal system. So it's completely against their agenda, and from their point of view, they won't let it happen. That's the way they see it. However, as I read further, it's not really up to them anymore to stop it from happening. So Brexit is in opposition to that agenda. So what is most important to know is that the British vote on leave has done its job. So the vote itself created this magical spell, this intention. The controllers that were have lost control. They are no longer the controllers. They've lost control. We're talking here about the control of the timelines for this planet. The timelines for this planet are being created by the predominant consciousness, which is the consciousness of the starseeds. And when I say starseeds, I'm talking about awareness and expansion in various degrees throughout different groups within humanity. So if we're looking at Britain itself, even if within Britain there are only a minority few starseeds, they're joining with all the other starseeds across the world to create the same goal, which is liberty, regardless of whether it's Brexit, or whether it's Donald Trump being president, or whether it's some other government. The predominant focus for the timelines is liberty for Earth, liberty for humanity, complete freedom, so that we can then move into growth and expansion, spiritual awareness, and move into the next octave upwards, ascension. It's that is the goal of a multidimensional reality. And that includes non-temporal beings outside of physicality. So the vote for Brexit, the vote for leave, was a grounded physical expression that has an echo throughout the dimensional fields, all lining up with sovereignty and liberty and with ascension itself. So they may appear in control due to the delay tactics seemingly working. So yeah, the delay tactics are seemingly working because we don't have Brexit yet. However, is it really working? It's just a delay tactic. Is it really working? And when we look spiritually, we see that the Brexit vote for leave is lining up with the ascension timeline and sovereignty and liberty. That is what is working. But we can't see it on a physical level. The people that see it are the empathic energy workers who are able to see the matrix and the matrices and the web beyond the physical world. The individuals who are existing themselves within higher dimensions are able to see the patterns behind these things. So they may appear in control due to the delay tactics seemingly working, but in truth they are desperate, and they absolutely are, because they've lost control. Everything they do is backfiring on them, and their 100-year plans aren't coming to fruition. And they're trying every possible tactic that they can think of, and every single way they maneuver, it's all flipping into the positive, because the Starseeds are controlling the timelines for this planet. Brexit vote for leave was a turning point forged in magic. So it was a turning point. It was a turning point because the controllers that were within the sort of EU superstate, just the same as within the United States regarding Trump's election, even though this is a sort of the same cabal network, within America, they did not think for 1 minute that Trump stood a chance of winning. And within Britain, they did not think for a minute that the vote for leave would win. So it's a shock, because they'd put magic into this. They'd put magic into Hillary Clinton winning. They'd visualized a timeline where she was president. Same with Britain. They had visualized Britain remaining within the EU and being part of the EU. That magic, that dark magic, has worked for them for thousands and thousands of years. For it not to work is a bit of a shock. For them to think, oh my goodness, this starseed awakening, this indigo revolution that we've known about for hundreds of years, that we really thought we had under control, it really is working. The starseeds really have come together, and they really are creating the timelines for this planet. So it's a shock to them, for them to lose, and for their magic not to be the magic that manifests. Why? Because the starseeds are also using magic, whether they're conscious of it or not. The open-hearted love and the sovereignty that they hold within their fields is far more powerful. In a dark room, you see darkness. You light a match and you see light. It's the same thing. Light is radiating and darkness is absorbing. So that polarity, when there's enough of a critical mass of light, that works in a stronger, more powerful way than the dark, depending on the critical mass level. And the controllers that were did not believe that critical mass would be reached, because they placed in they placed certain things, certain geometries in place to hold back critical mass. That's what they did. They believed that their inverted matrix would hold back critical mass, and it didn't. Critical mass occurred anyway. So they underestimated the starseeds and their ability to live the mission, basically. So the timelines were changed. Regardless of how this manifests in the interim physically, the energetic presentation is that we've already left. So when the vote was made for leave, which is a change of timelines, so the original timeline was remain, the timelines were shifted because the starseeds are creating the timelines. So the energetic presentation within the geometric field has already happened. We've already left. How that manifests in actuality, it could happen in all sorts of ways. It may even be that we don't physically actually leave, but we have left energetically. We are sovereign energetically. We are already sovereign as a nation in Britain and in America and in the world and in the planet, because the starseeds are sovereign within their individual makeup, and they're the ones controlling the timelines for Earth. So we've already left energetically, and that has to have a match within the physical, regardless of how that match is. And you have to remain very open to what that match is, because it may appear on paper, we're still in the EU. It may appear on paper, there's still superstates. It may appear on paper, the controllers that were are still in control. But that is often a false presentation and is not the match, because you need to look behind that and see, oh, look, we've got all these other people within the government structure that are independent. They're not part of the cabal. They're actually actively working against oppression and tyranny, and they want sovereignty too. Oh my goodness, there are starseeds in the government too. There are starseeds in the police force. There are starseeds in the National Health Service, and there are starseeds within all of these cabal-controlled structures. How did the starseeds get in there? So this is the whole polarity within service to self and service to others, and the polarity match, and the fact that, you know, the service to others energy kind of worked in a silent way, and these starseeds, the service to self individuals believed them to be dumbed down enough that they would not reach critical mass. Those starseeds were allowed into these systems because the service to self individuals thought that they were under control and thought that they wouldn't expand and together reach critical mass. And that was where they underestimated the entire service to others energy structure, because they did expand. They did move beyond the trapping system, which was very firmly put into place. The Nine call this the black box program. And I have a little book coming out very soon, which explains what the black box program is in relation to a specific part of the inverted matrix. The inverted matrix and the black box program is quite vast. The book I have coming out touches on part of it, specific to 5G, to chemtrails, and other energetic warfare. It's specific in that area, but that's what the Nine call it, the black box program. It was doing its job, and it was so technologically advanced and given to the service to self individuals from extraterrestrial technology that has worked in many timelines and on many planets to create a broadcast signal that prevents the starseeds from being able to access the pineal gland organic technology. So for the starseeds to break through the black box program and break through the barrier is a huge shock to the service to self group, and they're not happy about it at all. Not at all. They weren't expecting it. They viewed the timelines, and it was all set that the black box program would work. And for the starseeds to have broken through that and reached critical mass is causing extreme anger to them. And what I would say is, well done, starseeds. It was fantastic work. You have done the job that you came here to do. Carry on working that way. Keep your hearts open. Keep that knowing going. You have done amazingly well. When you actually look at the whole plan, it's absolutely fantastic, and we should be rejoicing. It doesn't matter who is president in America, and it doesn't matter whether we're in Brexit or not. The higher picture is liberty and freedom. I know that means the same thing, and sovereignty. And we've done it. So we should be rejoicing, but we still need to carry on. We still need to carry on with the cohesive focus and continue to lead the timelines for this planet. So Brexit has already happened within that layered dimensional field. This must and will create a match within the physical dimension one way or another. And it must, it can't not, because the matches are one. So you can't have an energy in one area and a mismatch in the other area. The black box program would be something that would distort that and prevent a grounded energy from manifesting upwards into the higher dimensions and vice versa. But because critical mass has been reached, we now have an aligned vortex. It's a stargate basically that has opened. The black box program was to keep the stargates closed and out of operation, and the starseeds, natural organic technology, the pineal gland being freed and working in an accurate, clear, powerful way, have created the opening of the stargates and created new stargates using the terminology that the nine use. There are keys and triggers within that terminology, which is why they use it, because the terminology moves you into alignment with your own sovereignty, and then together you continue to create the timelines for this planet, this solar system, and beyond. So carry on working with this knowledge in your minds. So carry on working, carry on within the alignment. And your hearts, and don't buy into the illusions of false hope and frustration. So it's impossible to say this to the third dimensional thinking individuals who, you know, hear this information and think, what a load of pseudoscience nonsense. They can't access this truth because it is outside of the boundary of where they are. But those who can then take the advice and the information that's coming in from the higher dimensions, which is keep the knowledge in your minds, regardless of what's being presented. Keep the knowledge in your minds and in your hearts. Don't buy into illusions of false hope and frustration, because false hope and frustration is part of this game, the response to these delay tactics, and they're not real patterns, they're illusory patterns. So the next part is those who voted leave will get what they want, a sovereign Britain. So that's what they voted for, regardless of the reason why they voted, whether it was to do with immigration or whether it was because they are aware of the EU and the corruption, or whatever the reason may be. There's lots and lots of reasons why someone would have voted leave. Ultimately, the core issue is sovereignty and independence. They will get what they want, regardless of how this manifests, regardless of whether Brexit actually occurs, either a no-deal Brexit or a Brexit with a little deal, or Brexit with a massive deal, or Brexit that isn't really Brexit. Regardless of how that happens, they will get that independence and they will get that sovereignty, because it's already occurred within the higher dimensional template. Through the vote, the leave vote aligned up with that template, as I've said, so they will get what they want. Now those who voted remain will get what they want also, which is unification with Europe. The reason why they voted is because they wanted to be part of Europe, as do a lot. There's a certain amount of individuals, myself included, that want unity with Europe. They love Europe, but they felt that the way to get that unity was to be sovereign and find a different route in rather than going through the EU. And for those who are aware, they're fully aware of the retreat and the creation of boundaries and becoming cohesive and sovereign within one's boundaries. This is what we do with our matrix. This is what we do with our energetic system. This is what we're doing with the planet, the timelines. We create that cohesive, infinite, independent structure that is individualized, and then we connect with the other matching structures. So we do the same thing with the countries. We have an independent sovereign country, and then we will have more unity. A unified structure is made up of independent, activated parts of the whole. And that's how a unified structure is created, because unity and independence are linked in the sense that one creates the other. An understanding of unity creates independence, and an understanding of full self-realization and individualization creates unity. They are one. There weren't that many people who perhaps have this understanding that made the vote, but there were others that had an understanding in various degrees of how to have unity with Europe. Those who voted remain. Now, some of them may have done it for personal reasons, because leaving Europe is going to affect their business or their travel and their holidays, or the goods that they are used to accessing, and they're worried that that will be affected. So there might have been all sorts of reasons why individuals might vote for Remain, but the main reason is the unification with Europe and the fact that we want to be part of Europe. They will get this. Unity with Europe is also within this higher dimensional template structure. The vote for leave, which creates sovereignty, will ultimately create unity at the same time. So that will also be given to those that voted Remain. In the interim, we're looking at chaos. We're looking at confusion. We're looking at a presentation of governmental systems that don't know what they're doing and are changing their minds all the time and are saying one thing and doing something else, causing all this frustration and all this incredulous disbelief and horror and disillusionment, and people who feel like giving up. But in the actual energetic structure, we are looking at sovereignty and unity together, because that's ascension. That's the ascension timeline, and the starseeds are creating the timelines for this planet. So those who voted Remain will get what they want, unity with Europe. Both are the goal: sovereignty, independence, individualization, and unity. Yet it will not manifest in the way most people interpret. So that's the information. The way that sovereignty is going to manifest, the way that unity is going to manifest, is not the way most people interpret, including myself. I interpret these energies as best as I can, but I don't know exactly how this will manifest in the full physical way. I can see further down the line, and I can see the self-governing society, but how this moves from the interim state of chaos and confusion into sovereignty and unity. I mean, what looks likely is that Brexit will trigger other countries within the European Union also wanting to leave. Now, at the moment, the EU and those behind the EU, as in the cabal structure, are only really having to deal with naughty Britain wanting out. When someone else wants out as well, then it's double the trouble, if you like. And when a third person wants out, it's triple the trouble. So kind of that looks like where the timelines are most likely going. That even if Brexit doesn't occur in the way that the British people expect it to, we're potentially looking at another exit from one of the other European countries. So that's the next thing that I said here. The EU will change its structure entirely. The EU will change its structure entirely. We aren't going to see the EU that we know now. The EU, the European Union, if it even keeps the same name or a similar name, it's going to change its structure entirely. It will not be what it is. So, you know, that's the most that I can say about this manifestation of how unity and sovereignty will occur. And Brexit's just the first trigger to this incredible transformation. And it's not just the EU, it's the whole superstate plan. The whole service to self plan is not manifesting in the way that they would have expected it to, because the black box program, which is a netting system, a trapping system, an inverted matrix set up to prevent critical mass. I won't say it hasn't worked, because it did work in the way it was supposed to work. It's just that the black box program did not account for, and I've got to be careful what I say here in case this video reaches certain ears. The black box program did not account for certain configurations and did not take those configurations into account. Those configurations allowed for the opening of stargates. So that's how to kind of say what's happening here in the most coded way that I can. So the EU will change its structure entirely, and we will see utter chaos as this happens, which we are seeing that utter chaos now, and we will continue to see utter chaos. So the way for us as starseeds, as aware individuals, is to take one step out, take the overview. Oh yes, that's chaos on the third dimension. Okay, we have to live within this third dimension, but there is a way to step out of that and move into a structured reality outside of that chaos. We do this through our emotions and through our knowing of unity and sovereignty, which is the pattern above the chaos that's falling down and creating itself within the third dimension. The chaos is simply part of the transformation. As things change so very, very rapidly and so very extremely. This is an extremely huge change. So it can't be necessarily smooth, because we are looking at individuals who have a consciousness that is not geared up for this level of change. Only the starseeds who've prepared themselves can psychologically and spiritually handle this level of change. On the other side of this, as in the utter chaos, is what every service to others individual desires, and that is liberty. So I have spoken about that. It's true liberty, as in real freedom. This planet hasn't seen it since, not since its inception, but since the infiltration of other interested parties, I will say, and the creation of the black box program in its seed point. There hasn't been true liberty since then, which is quite early on in the, not the inception of the planet, but in the beginning of our known history. So this is a very new template, but of course the third dimension is the template that contains that level of infiltration due to polarity of service to self and service to others, or negative and positive. Once you start to raise above that polarity and you go out of the third dimension, so you have a humanity that is existing within a transformation from the carbon-based molecular structure within their DNA into the crystalline-based molecular structure in their DNA, and are creating a matching environmental structure to that. It's outside of a third dimension, so the polarity is lessening, and that's the first time this has happened since known history, not since the inception, because it's kind of gone like this, from this dimension up here and fallen down into the third dimension and gone through known history all the way along here, and now we're going back up. So we're going back up to the same point, but with a whole new regenerated, renewed experience. So what we're doing is we're not coming from this higher dimensional point and going down and coming back up. What we're doing is we're starting here and we're spiraling down and spiraling back up above, if you like. That's probably not really the correct pattern, but basically we are going beyond the inception point to a new inception point, which is the birthing of this new Earth. The EU will change its structure entirely. We will see utter chaos as this happens. On the other side of this is what every service to others individual desires, and that is true liberty. Turn your desperate hope. So many have this. Hope. Oh, please allow Brexit. Please come out of the EU. Oh, the government are talking now. So great. I think in 3 weeks' time, we're coming out of the EU. Great. And then 3 weeks' time comes, and then Article 50 is activated again, and there's more delay tactics, and there's extra time, and the different political parties are talking and doing weird things, and bang, you know, this hope is shattered again. Turn your desperate hope into knowing. Know the pattern, know the game, know what's happening here, know about the sovereignty, know about the independence, know about the unification that's occurring, and be joyful about the higher dimensional patterning and how we are moving into alignment with that higher dimensional patterning and creating a whole new existence based on liberty, true liberty. Turn your desperate hope into knowing and create that which is already there. So I mean, I wrote this status myself, but obviously the 9 are coming in with their comments here. So the 9 is saying, turn your desperate hope into knowing and create that which is already there. So when something is already there in your future timeline or in your higher dimensional template, it's sitting there as a huge potential. It hasn't set yet because it hasn't fallen into the physical, but it's there, and it's the reality you're lining up with. It's the future you're lining up with. So if you see that timeline as a future, or whether you see it as a higher geometric formation that's falling down into the 3rd dimension, whether you see it vertically or horizontally, it's exactly the same thing. So turn your desperate hope into knowing and create that which is already there. So it's there. It's already there in the future, in the higher dimensional stream, but we are creating it, because creation doesn't have a linear expression to it. Creation is aligning up with the unified point. Creation is aligning up with the 0 point. So when you create something, you are putting the future timeline there, and you are creating the higher dimensional pattern. Like the leave vote was the creation for this particular pattern I'm talking about, Brexit. But with the same respect, the timeline was already there before you created it. The higher dimensional pattern was already there before you created it. The leave vote that holds within it liberty and sovereignty and independence was already there before the leave vote even occurred. So everything was already set before we moved into the creation of it. The creator and the creation are the same thing. You simply line up with the other part of yourself. So the inside aspect of you lines up with the externalized aspect of you. And that's what's happened with the leave vote. The leave vote for Brexit lined up with the pattern that was already there. And yet at the same time, the leave vote created the pattern. So from that point of view, the pattern wasn't already there because the leave vote created it. But from the point of view of the externalized perspective, the pattern the leave vote creates, sovereignty, liberty, and independence, was already there, and the leave vote simply lined up with it. So it's a unified perspective from one point and another point that lines up together simultaneously. That's why the creator and the creation are the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin, and when they line up together, that's when you have manifestation. It's the lining up together that creates the manifestation. So what the 9 are saying here is, turn your desperate hope into knowing. So desperate hope isn't going to create you anything except more desperate hope. Turn it into knowing, and then you move into alignment. And that is when you create that which is already there, because you move into alignment with it. You move into alignment with the pattern, because knowing is seeing the pattern and becoming unified with it. That's why you create it. You are not powerless to a corporate machine. That's so important. You are not powerless to a corporate machine. The cabal, the EU, the superstates, you're not just some pawn that's powerless to this grand, huge, complex corporation that's ruling you. You are a divine creator. You are the creator that lines up with the creation. You are the one that created the creation. As you on your own, literally as you on your own, you are a divine creator. When you move from desperate hope into knowing, you move into alignment with the creation and you become the creator. You are therefore a divine creator. And you join with other divine creators. So you, as you alone, join with all the others who see what you see, who understand the game, who work with energy. They all line up also with that higher dimensional pattern. And when that is done en masse, and you create critical mass, which has already happened and is continuing to happen, the black box program has not accounted for the configuration that is created by your knowing. that you are a divine creator and that you are connecting with other divine creators. That is what has created this critical mass and allowed you, us, as a planetary system, as humanity, as the starseeds on Earth, to line up into the place of divine creator or creatrix, creator and creatrix, and line up with that creation. You join with other divine creators to manifest the world you want to experience. That's what you do. You manifest the world you want to experience. We're all, the starseeds are in alignment, regardless of where they are in their journey. They're all in alignment with sovereignty, liberty, independence, and individualization, and everything that goes with that. They do that by moving into knowing, which is the 0 point, which is the accessing of true memory. They do this through compassion. They do this through gratitude. They do this through forgiveness in varying degrees, but it's all there. And they line up with that 0 point field. That's why the timeline was forged in magic. The Brexit timeline was forged in magic because it lines up with all of those patterns: sovereignty, liberty, gratitude, forgiveness, and the starseed consciousness itself. So you manifest the world you want to experience, and Brexit is just one small part of this manifestation process that's occurred because the starseeds were not subject to the outside interference and the negative structure affecting their thought process that is the black box program. They were able to create critical mass because of the configuration, which is the configuration of the heart. They were able to create critical mass and manifest the world that they want to experience. That's what they have done, and that's what they continue to do. So Brexit's just one part of that manifestation. Donald Trump becoming president in America is another part of that manifestation. And it's a whole different story, yet really it's the same story. It's the same story. It's about sovereignty, it's about liberty, it's about independence, and it's about individualization. It's about our spiritual expansion, and it is about ascension itself. Everything is in alignment with ascension and what ascension truly is and what ascension truly means. So that is my status that I uploaded to Facebook, and this video is my analysis of it, which I'm going to title Superstates versus Independence, Brexit Blessings. So Brexit blessings to everyone in Britain, and the same to everyone across the planet and beyond. And thank you for watching my video, and I shall be back soon. Have a lovely day. Bye.